Hello everyone, Tactical Edge here. Today we have a replay picked up from the Nightcrew Clan Discord posted by Boujalicious. Big thanks to him for sending out this replay. And as you can see, we have some intense Vanguard action as both armies are deploying on top of each other in the Vanguard deployment zone. For the Tzeentch army played by Boujalicious, we have a front line of Vanguards with their silver shields, decently cheap unit cost, and also Tzeentch barrier. They are the perfect unit to absorb enemy missile firepower, especially when they have magical attacks and decent melee stats to trade into the Wood Elf front line. And of course, being a gore unit of the Beastmen, they do have Vanguard deployment, which is why they can skip the marching phase, go straight into melee against enemy Vanguard units. Now for the rest of the army here, there's a bunch of Screamers of Tzeentch scattered across the battlefield. They also have forward deployment, supported by a bunch of Tentacles with their armor piercing to cut through the thick bark of tree units, and magical attacks to mitigate enemy physical resistance. For the non-Vanguard deployed forces, Chaos Knights of Tzeentch and Forsaken of Tzeentch, leading the army a Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Tzeentch with blue and pink fire plus the Sword of Change for that Chaos Spawn summon. Now on the other side, played by World Beater, the Wood Elves are going pretty heavy on the Vanguard deployment as well with the skirmishing forces. A ton of Deepwood Scouts with Swift Shiver Shard, and they still have 180 range because this battle was played before the nerf on their range. Not that it matters when enemies are right in their face, and I always love a good Vanguard battle, so I rolled back my game to cast this battle. The rest of the army here, a bunch of Glade Riders, plus a bunch of Wild Riders, one of them the Wild Hunters of Kurnos with their anti-large and armor-piercing attacks, and a few more units of Eternal Gods with shields for a more solid backbone, leading the army Durflu without any spells, supported by a single Spellsinger of Life with Regrowth and Power Stone for extra magic regeneration. That's it for the army builds. Now let's get the battle started. Right as the battle begins, because the Vanguards and Deepwood Scouts are deployed right on top of each other, the Deepwood Scouts didn't even have a chance to fire their double Swift Shiver Shard and are quickly being dragged down in melee combat. The Wild Riders and Glade Riders will have to sacrifice themselves just to try and pin down and delay the charge of the Vanguards, charging into those Beastmen units all over the place. More Tzeentch units are flooding in, Screamers and the Tentacles are charging into the Glade Riders with the anti-large bonus. The Screamers can wreck those Glade Riders without any issue, but the main problem is still these Tentacles. Swift Shiver Shards might have double the damage with their double shots, but with the silver shields on these Tentacles, they can mitigate most of that damage plus the Tzeentch barriers, and on top of that, the Tentacles have more than enough speed to catch up with the Deepwood Scouts. At 38 speed, the Deepwood Scouts cannot outrun the 42 speed of the Tentacles since they are also buffed up by the Primal Fury, adding 10% speed. And on the flanks there, some of the Tentacles have been pushed back by the Glade Riders and Wild Riders. The Tzeentch army repaying in kind, routing off one of the Wood Elf cavalry. We'll go back into normal speed here as some Deepwood Scouts start firing back at the incoming Tzeentch units, but a lot of them are still being dragged into melee combat. But there are only so many of them, and there's just too much Tzeentch mobility. Pink Fire blasting away some poor Deepwood Scouts and Glade Riders, doing some pretty nice fire damage. Though the bigger problem is that the Deepwood Scouts in the middle are being pressured by the Tentacles who have broken through the Wood Elf front line. Wild Riders and Glade Riders are still holding the flanks for now. Eternal Gods also providing some anti-large refuge for these Wood Elf mobility. A little bit of a regrowth, keeping those Wild Hunters of Kurnos alive as they are being overloaded with a ton of Tzeentch mobility. Even some Chaos Knights of Tzeentch might come in. Oh, nope. Seems like they have their eyes on some routed and regrouped Glade Riders. In less than 2 minutes, the Tzeentch melee rush is in full swing and the Wood Elf army is already falling behind. Durflu might be able to provide some really solid melee backbone, but the problem is that their missile firepower, all those DPS is gone. Most of the Deepwood Scouts are shut down and what remains are pretty tattered. Another Pink Fire just burning down the remaining Deepwood Scouts over here. The Glade Riders are on a mass exodus. Wild Hunters of Kurnos will still be a great threat against the Chaos Knights of Tzeentch, but here comes the Tentacles of Tzeentch coming in with that magic attacks and an impressive charge, absolutely wrecking those Wild Hunters of Kurnos on impact, and they're now down to less than half health. Screamers are still fighting, but they're not long for this world, slowly fading away. Durflu going after the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Tzeentch, trying to snipe out the Tzeentch leadership, but the Sorcerer Lord of Tzeentch is indeed on a disc of Tzeentch and has more than enough speed to escape from the giant tree man. Deepwood scouts at the back here have temporarily regrouped from the Tzeentch pursuit, but there are some tentacles nearby ready to just run them down. Another pink fire, and these Deepwood scouts are on their last legs as well. Wild Riders still roaming around the battlefield, but there are not a lot of good targets for them to fight right now. A little bit of a bolt of change right on top of Durthu, chipping away his health, I suppose. Forsaken and Vanguard still making short work of the Wood Elf infantry and just killing the Spell Singer, cutting off the Wood Elves from their healing. On the far side, their Eternal Gods and Glade Riders trying desperately to push back those Tzeentch mobility, but there's just too much of them right now, and the Tangos are trading very efficiently into the Eternal Gods. The Tzeentch Sorcerer Lord is now back to the sky, safely out of reach from the Wood Elves. Given how tattered the Wild Riders are, including the Wild Hunters of Kurnos on the far side, the Wood Elf army is very unlikely to take back the initiative from the Tzeentch mobility. Vanguard is now going after the Eternal Gods, and the Tentacles are free to roam around the battlefield. Perhaps if the Wild Riders get the charge on the Tentacles with some fire support from the Swift Shiver Shard, then they can still do some damage, but alas, seems like the Tentacles are taking the initiative here, bringing the fight to the Wood Elves. A blue fire onto Durthu here, exploiting his weakness to fire, just doing some minor chip damage, but over time it does add up, especially when the Tzeentch army cut off that healing. No more regrowth for the Wood Elves, since the Spellsinger is dead or shattered. The Tentacles are rather fragile themselves without the barrier, so a rear charge from the Wood Elf mobility, including the Wild Riders, is enough to inflict substantial casualties on the unit. So the Tentacles are moving on to the next target here, just trying to cut off the remaining Swift Shiver Shards. There's still one very tattered unit staying around, but here comes the Forsaken and the Tzeentch Sorcerer diving down, just trying to disrupt those without firepower. The rest of the Eternal Gods are being steadily cut down by the surviving Tangos here. Durthu once again going after the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Tzeentch, but he does have a trick up his sleeve. His unique ability, the Sword of Change, dropping in a Chaos Spawn summon right on top of himself, using these monstrous infantry to screen away Durthu, allowing himself to escape back into the skies, escape from being crushed by a massive tree. There are still some Wild Riders and Eternal Gods around. With the charge of the Wild Riders, the Tangos have been routed, but there are still so much Tzeentch forces around here, especially with the Chaos Spawn summon. Eternal Gods are coming in trying to reinforce Durthu, but the problem isn't really the Chaos Spawns here for the Wood Elves. It is these Chaos Knights and some relatively healthy Tentacles and the Tangos, and they're more than enough to just run over the rest of the depleted Wood Elf forces outside of Durthu. A unit of full health Screamer probably being forgotten on the far corners of battlefield, diving on to Durthu and the Eternal Gods around him, inflicting some pretty nice charge impact damage, and Durthu is all alone against all these Tzeentch monsters. Armulasis is hit, and that shall be victory for the Tzeentch Vanguard. GG to both players, and big thanks to Bujalicious for dropping this replay on the Nightcrew Clan Discord. For the army performances here, the Tangos did spectacularly, getting right on top of those Steepwood scouts at the very beginning of battle, all thanks to their Vanguard deployment, and the Tentacles also did some pretty good work. The rest of the mobility not doing too well here, as the Screamers are quite fragile themselves. Forsaken of Tzeentch though, got some really good work done, punching those lightly armored Wood Elf units, and the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Tzeentch did some okay work with the pink fire and blue fire spam. As for the Wood Elf army here, they're through mostly just running around trying to catch up to the Tzeentch mobility, so not a lot of damage done, and the rest of the Wood Elf army were not prepared for a Vanguard Tzeentch army, and the Deepwood Scouts got quickly eliminated in combat, while the rest of the mobility also traded poorly into the Tzeentch mobility, except for the Wild Riders. The Wild Hunters of Kurnos got some really good damage done, but unfortunately in the end being charged by one of the Tentacles of Tzeentch, and they were quickly shredded with their remaining HP, not able to get heals from the Spell Singer due to her being eliminated early. And yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed this multiplayer Vanguard action, and if you want to see more Total War Warhammer multiplayer content, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Itch, signing out.